This is AF Winter hosting another episode of Confusional Arousals. I must say that I am getting a lot of negative feedback from this title. People just don't like it. And that makes me smile. Because if you know me, and let's be honest here, unless you have stumbled on this podcast by chance, you are probably a friend or a family member. Hi, Mom. So, if you know me, you know that getting on people's nerves is one of my life's greatest pleasures. But I like the name. It has arousals in it, which mistakenly may give you the impression that I will be sharing some of my sexual exploits. If that were true, I would have nothing to talk about in less than 1.5 episodes. And I am being very generous there. But confusional arousals is also very confusional. But confusional is very interesting to me. It comes from the word confuse. Confuse, a verb first used around 1330. Confused, an adjective, 1576. Confusedly, an adverb. Please excuse me for not saying the date. Confusedness, a noun. Confusely, please forgive me if I don't say the part of speech. Confuseness, confusable, confusing, which might be how you find this discussion. Confusingly, confusion, confusional, yay, confusional, from the late 19th century. Confusive, confusively, confusticate. I hope I am pronouncing that correctly, or else it would be confutable. Confusticated, confutant, confutation, confutative, and confutator, kind of like a tater tot. Why do we need so many words that mean discombobulate? I am thinking that the reason we need so many varieties of confuse is that we are so confused in so many ways. Whether it is that we have just realized that all the stuff that our parents or our teachers or our leaders have taught us are all bullshit, or our mind is trying to rationalize a world that is chaotic and meaningless. I don't know. I do know that most of us are not searching for truth, but want someone to lay it all out for us. Sorry, this podcast will not do that for you. Truth is not something to blindly believe. It is something we must struggle to find, and even when we find it, the truth changes. I wake up every day with the full knowledge that what I believed yesterday is probably wrong, and anyone who tells me that they know the truth is someone I should probably avoid. So, Confusional Arousals, as the name of this podcast, will remain until some sponsor decides to give me $2 million to change the name, or somebody pays me that money just to shut me up. I think $2 million would do it. This podcast, Confusional Arousals, is about, amongst other things, some epiphanies I've had in my life. So I have to explain parts of my life to you so that you will understand the significance of each of these epiphanies to my existence. I'm a theater teacher in middle school. Sounds very exciting, I know. And it is, but we'll talk about middle school at another time. I've always loved the theater. I was in my first production in 2nd grade. But my love for theater, for performance, goes back even before that. In 1st grade, my mother brought me a ventriloquist dummy, and I worked on an act, which means I thought of a lot of stupid jokes and gave the dummy all the punchlines. After annoying my parents and siblings for several months, I felt ready for the big time. I asked my 1st grade teacher if I could perform, and she said yes. Now, I was always a very smart kid. I read and I wrote before I was in kindergarten. My mother was a reading teacher, and when I was very young, she would read me great works of literature and fabulous poetry. I remember The Rime of the Ancient Mariner by Samuel Taylor Coleridge. It's about a guy, a sailor, who, just for the fun of it, kills an albatross, a seagull. This is considered bad luck, and the other sailors on his ship tell him so. He scoffs at their superstitious minds. But soon the winds stop, and he and his crewmates are on this boat for days and days because the wind has not returned. Day after day, day after day, we struck, nor breath nor motion, as idled as a painted ship upon a painted ocean. And they all die, except this guy who killed the albatross so that he could think about his sins. He is doomed to tell his story till the end of his days, warning others that all God's creatures are precious. He prayeth best who loveth best, all things both great and small. For the dear God who loveth us, he made and loveth all. My mother also read me The Ballad of Reading Gaol by Oscar Wilde. That was about Oscar Wilde, who was put in jail for homosexuality in the 1890s. He described to the reader his emotional journey from the top of the theater world, because he had just written The Importance of Being Earnest, which I teach to my middle schoolers, to being in prison. I am sure Moms of Liberty would question my mother's and my own reading choices. Anyway, I was a really smart kid, and I wrote this ventriloquist act, and I brought it in to perform for my first grade class. So at the time in New York City, teachers were allowed to read their newspapers when their students were busy with schoolwork. So there I was in front of my class with Charlie McCarthy. Charlie McCarthy, and I was nailing it. Now, I was a little kid, so the act was probably about 5 minutes long. And when I was done, the teacher looked up from her paper and waved me on, permitting me to continue. If my memory serves me correctly, and there is no guarantee that it does, I was up there for like 15-20 minutes. I was a hit. She wanted me back the next week and the week after that. So I wrote all these skits when most of the other kids in my class were learning the alphabet. Now, the first show I was in was The Pied Piper of Hamelin. This was in the 2nd grade, and I was a rat. Now, you would think that this is not much of a part for a bright, upcoming star. If you don't know the story, here are the pertinent parts. So, Pied Piper is like an exterminator who plays the flute, and the town of Hamelin has a rat problem. The Pied Piper talks to the town council, saying he'll get rid of all the rats for a price. Then there's a scene where we see all the rats, and the teacher put on a little bit of music, some rat music, and we were supposed to come in and do a little dance. Everyone was petrified, and they all stood there. But I did this fabulous rat dance, and the teacher loved it so much that she gave me a solo, probably because nobody else would do it. And that was my first taste of what acting was like, to actually be admired for my silliness, because everybody thought I was pretty good. I know it's not much in the context of things, but for a little kid, having that respect was pretty powerful. And that feeling has remained with me. From then on, I jumped at the chance whenever I could be in a play. In junior high school and high school, I was in all the school shows, and I always had the smaller parts, usually comic. But I felt like I was at home. And I didn't feel that way in my real life. But the cool thing about theater is everyone accepts you for who you are and where you are in your journey. And it might not be for every production everywhere, and I have been in some pretty dysfunctional productions, but generally that's how I felt. Plus, in high school, you got to hug the girls good luck before the performance, and that was always a very stimulating experience for me. I had a major theater epiphany, a confusional arousals, you might say, in college or right after college. I was in New York, and I went to see My Dinner with Andre. Now, My Dinner with Andre is about the great experimental theater director Andre Gregory, who has dinner with Wallace Shawn, a very original and talented actor. They are friends who haven't seen each other for a while, and they get together at a restaurant and talk. This movie is about an hour and a half or so, and it's just these two guys, two friends, talking about really meaningful things, life and love and art. There are no explosions or tremendous reveals, just this conversation between two very intelligent, perceptive people. The movie was over about 10 p.m., and I'm in Manhattan, and the streetlights seem brighter, the sounds of the city seemed clearer, and the smells seemed smellier. My senses were heightened, my life seemed ultra-focused, as if I was in an accident and things were moving in slow motion, but everything was deeply observable. Life was singing with a full orchestra. That movie had changed me. I was different than when I went into and this is the power of the arts. This can happen reading a great book, standing in front of a wonderful painting, listening to a concert, or watching a play. Even eating a great meal can change us if we are ready for a change. This is the power of film, and usually we don't see any of this. Most of the time we go to a movie for pure entertainment and pure escapism, and we go there so that we don't have to think about anything. We don't want to change. We want everything to be done for us. We want to sit in the darkness of the auditorium to forget about our miserable lives for a few hours, and then we leave and everything has remained the same. So, on that Manhattan street corner after that movie, when my senses were overwhelmed and my thoughts about life had taken flight, from that point, I wanted to do theater that changes people. I wanted to do weird theater. I wanted to do theater that made people think about their own lives and gave them courage to make different decisions than those that they were making before, so that they could be a little bit more invested in their lives and living. Theater has been a part of my life for the last 50 years or so, because I realized that very early that the art form can fundamentally change me and the world I live in. I hope you all have found something that does the same for you. So, until next time, this is A.F. Winter. Thank you for joining me on Confusional Arousals.